The following broadcast is intended for mature audiences. These are real people sharing very real, deeply personal experiences. This content may be considered triggering for others and for those who are sharing. The chat room is a privilege intended for discussions and sharing. You are not being asked to agree, but you are being asked to stay civil and refrain from personal attacks. Listener discretion is advised.
All right, thank you for joining us. This is Am I Mental? I am E. This is a podcast of real people sharing real experiences with their mental health and the issues that could come with it. Normally at this point I would be introducing KZ, but he's an essential employee and he is out doing some emergency work right now, so he will not be joining us today. However, we do have our guest today, Jen. Go ahead and say hi.
Hey everybody, hi E.
Hello. And we already have Kletzana in the chat saying hello, E. Man, that Kletzana is like one of the most reliable people in the chat, hands down. So yeah, we are now at episode 7 of 10 for the first season. We are just cooking along here. And as normal, I forgot to do it last week. Sorry, Rachel. Just want to remind you guys that been getting a lot of help down in the Southern California area thanks to Rachel Conway. She is running her own little business here for therapy, and I'm struggling to remember it. But yeah, it is Genuine Psychological Services in Mission Valley and Encinitas. Like I said, I've known her since she was going to school for this stuff. If I could, I would use her as my therapist. Thing is, I know her personally, so that kind of ruins it, and there's also a geographic barrier. But she's helping us out, so I'm going to help her out as well. Meanwhile, we do have Jen with us. And go ahead and tell us, what are we talking about today?
Well, I've listened to the first, 6 episodes of your show, and it seems like you've had a huge variety of people with many different things that they're struggling with. I know yourself and at least one other person talked about depression. And I'm diagnosed with depression, and I'm also diagnosed with bipolar 2, which is different from bipolar. So, and I can get into that. I don't have a diagnosis of anxiety, but I do have social anxiety.
Gotcha.
And I overthink things monumentally. I think those are all tied in together. So I just came on here to share about my experience with those things. And just whatever anybody wants to know, my journey of being diagnosed and coping with it and treatment into the years of my life.
Perfect. Yeah, and I know that for me, and I'm sure for some of the people out there, hearing the diagnosis of bipolar 2, that's not a very commonly heard of thing. You usually hear of just bipolar or manic depressive. So maybe you could give us a little more detail about what entails when you have bipolar 2.
So bipolar 2 does include what you would call mood swings. But there are so many levels of bipolar, so many severities of bipolar. And, some people are just such an extreme case. I genuinely feel bad for them. Mine was discreet enough that it took weird other peripheral behaviors to even diagnose it. Part of the symptoms that I came to the doctor with was, for example, hoarding and binge shopping, binge eating, binge just spending on random stuff. And of course, the depression, really deep bouts of depression. And I'd be so depressed for 3 days straight, don't even want to get out of bed, to, okay, I'm good. Let's go. Going back to work. And so it would just dip down into these valleys and then come back up to a plateau.
Wow.
But it would frequently.
Definitely different than regular depression, because I don't get that bounce back. If I go 3 days of not wanting to get out of bed, day 4 is going to be the same. Same with day 5.
Well, so that's interesting. What brings you out of it?
I have a really awesome wife, and she basically, if it comes down to it, she'll get a glass of water and pour it on my head. Has happened. Has happened. So yeah.
So like that, you got your wife helping pull you out of bed, pull you out of depression a little bit.
And I help her as well. It's
Yeah.
a two-way thing. Plus, also it helps having kids, and they're at that age now where they're just so fun, and they're funny, and I don't want to miss that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, see, the thing about, so my husband and I don't have kids. We've been married 22 years this year, and neither one of us wanted kids, so it worked out really well that we didn't want kids. But yeah, I imagine that if you have kids, you have to kind of pull your shit together. On days when you don't feel like you can pull your shit together, you kind of have to, because you got kids relying on you to take them to school and make them dinner and
Right.
help with homework.
Yeah, it turned out that daycare was actually one of the worst things to happen to me. Get up just enough to get them to daycare, get home, climb right back into bed, get up to go get them from daycare with absolutely nothing done through the day. But we're not here to talk about me.
Okay.
We could go into more detail about me in another episode. I do plan on doing that. But we do have Klitzana telling you hello.
Hi, Katsana. Thanks for being so reliable. That's awesome.
Really? Tell me about it. And there's Klitzana. I call E when I get down and I can't get back up, my human Prozac. Yeah, and honestly, helping out Klitzana helps me, too. Like, I could be at my absolute worst, but I could pull together to help someone else.
Yes.
Like, I could be walking through the flames of hell, my leg on fire, and I'll still help you.
Yep. And it does feel good. I'm the same way. I'm a very loyal person. And even like one of the best things to do when I'm down is to do something for someone else. And some people who are on the receiving end, they don't have like an appreciation for that. They're like, I feel bad. You're helping me too much. No, you don't understand. It helps me to help you. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But you got to be careful because that could be very bad. Because that could get destructive in and of itself.
Yep.
And I could imagine with you how you're describing the bipolar 2, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you will get into kind of like almost an obsessive behavior on certain things, and the helping someone else might even fall into that, maybe?
Yeah, that becomes, well, so here's another part of my bipolar 2 is addiction. So I have a few different ones, and they're a constant battle. And one of them is, I think, even like almost an addiction of codependency. And yeah, that could become its own. I need that to feel good. I need to be able to do that thing to feel good. That could be dangerous.
Right. I mean, and there's definitely like a how do you put it? Like a rational self-protection, self-preservation, self-awareness thing of when you do help someone else, it does help you. And, it, obviously, if you help other people around you, everyone benefits from it. But then it's so easy to fall into altruism, which altruism eventually, it takes you down with you. I mean, the giving tree is probably one of the best examples of what altruism can bring you. It didn't turn out so good for the tree at the end.
Sweet little kid's book. It was a very sweet kid's book, but yeah.
Yeah, but there's a deeper lesson to it that I think gets missed.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep, and there's Klitzana, altruism kills. Yeah, it seems to be suicide at the slowest possible rate.
Suicide of your soul.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I was also just going to, for people who are listening, talk about kind of what happened to me, what my response was when I first got diagnosed. Because all of a sudden, I'm diagnosed as a bipolar 2. That was really scary to me because when I started looking for the doctor to help, when I went to the doctor and just kind of feeling like, I know I'm a sensitive person. I have thin skin. I am moody. Also, I spend a lot of money on things I don't need. Laying all this out, to me, those didn't feel like any pieces of a specific puzzle. They were just kind of things I was telling my doctor, look, this is what I'm struggling with. And then I got this diagnosis of depression and bipolar 2. And so she wanted to put me on some antidepressants. And I didn't want that.
Right.
I was in my early 20s.
And this was back in like 2000, late 90s, early 2000s?
It was probably the year 2000 or 2001, maybe.
Yeah, and that's about where I was too. And I mean, just for like the younger listeners, you guys don't understand the stigma that we faced with our parents, because our parents, it was, you don't talk about it. it's not an issue. You bottle it up, you hide it, you just push through it. The whole just get over it.
Yep.
So our generation, we really pushed hard to give you guys what you have today. It still has a long ways to go, but
there's still so much stigma surrounding it. And even my parents, my mom would be like, why are you crying? Why are you crying? And she would get like frustrated with me. And I would get frustrated because I feel like I'm letting her down, or I don't know. I can't explain why I'm crying, but don't be mad at me about it. So for a good 6 months after my diagnosis, I refused any kind of medical, pharmaceuticals. But I went to therapy. I tried eating better. I tried some supplements. The therapy, the psychotherapy was beneficial, but nothing got me where I needed to be. And so I finally decided to take the antidepressants. And what I discovered was, so my fear was that they would make me feel like I was fake, like happy pills. Because that's what the people in our generation, that's what they would call, oh, go take your happy pills like you're the mom in the suburbs and soccer mom, and you got to have your happy pills to put on your fake smile.
And then books out there like, the Ritalin generation, the stuff like that, it did not help.
Yes. So, but when I took it and I started feeling the effects of it, what it felt like was, oh my gosh, this isn't a fake version. This isn't false happiness. This is a drug that's letting the best parts of me come to the surface. This is a drug that is making the burden and the baggage of depression and sadness and sleepiness and chaos, like drop it off. It's letting me drop that stuff off so that I can just be the better parts of myself. And so to anybody who is struggling whether or not to take the pharmaceuticals, I would say put the stigma aside, put your reservations aside. Once you try it out, then decide if it's worth it for you.
And for my experience, I had to go through a number of antidepressants. I went through 3 different SSRIs, 1 SNRI, and I don't even know what category this last one is, but it took that long to find one that worked for me. The other ones, I felt fake. I felt like what you were afraid of. This one, I feel like it's me. Like you said, it's like, but for me, it calms my mind. It's like I have when I don't have my meds, it feels like I have like a, like those aluminum Corona buckets. Like my head's trapped in one of those buckets, and everything is magnified and echoing and really irritating. I take the meds and that bucket gets lifted off my head. And we also we have a first time on the chat here. We have Brandy, who was talking about how we were talking about how our parents treated us. She's seeing her dad treat her sister the same way while she's battling depression.
Oh, man.
And Kletzana said, hide your crazy. That's what I was told.
Oh, man.
And Kletzana also got lucky that her first antidepressant was the one that worked for her.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And did it stay working? Like, it's still effective?
There's a little delay, so we'll get an answer, I'm sure.
Okay.
Because mine, I haven't had to adjust my dosage. I only have had to adjust it once in the 4 years I've been on it, which is awesome.
At one point, my dosage got to be, and it was gradual. This is the thing, is some of this stuff sneaks up on me. It's not until I kind of flip a switch in my brain and go, you need to take a self-assessment of what's happening right now. But one of those drugs made me feel very, very flat. My emotions were just flat. And I pictured myself like I was a cardboard cutout of a person. You were just, the life-size Blockbuster video, little action stars you'd see in the cardboard life-size thing. That's what I felt like walking around town.
I'm laughing because I relate. Now, Kletzana said that yes, her meds still help. And Brandy was saying that her sister has to bounce between a couple of meds. And we have a new one, I think is the name, M-A-I, says hi all.
Hi,
and then Kletzana, 3 years, and I haven't had to adjust the dose. And Brandy, that's how my sister feels sometimes, completely numb. So she stops taking them so she can feel human. Brandy, that's how I felt when I was on Paxil. I felt like my emotions were a complete flatline, and I started doing some really bad stuff just to see if I could feel again. The worst thing I did was I quit cold turkey.
Oh, no. Don't do that.
And then Carly, hello, late but here.
Awesome. Hey, everybody.
It's me and Tommy. Oh, awesome. I know who that is. I was on their podcast once, and now they're chatting on mine. Alrighty, so you were talking about how you discovered Facebook Market with me earlier. And you were talking about how it's probably the worst thing to happen with you, and how bipolar 2 plays into this. I found it really curious how you described it. So if you remember what you were saying, let's go ahead and share that again.
Yeah. So I like bargains. I like to find bargains. And there's some things where I just I can't imagine spending that kind of money on a haircut. I really will get my hair cut twice a year, right? And for the cheapest price I can. If I had a sister who would just do it in her kitchen, I would do that. But so I am frugal, but I'm always looking for bargains. And I only just discovered it a few months ago when my husband and I moved from an apartment to a house. And so I'm here in this big house, doubled our square footage, and I'm looking around and I'm like, I need some artwork. I need some candle holders. I need stuff to make it feel warm and cozy. And so now every night when I come home, I get on Facebook Marketplace because number one, it's cheap stuff. And number two, it's almost like thrift store shopping, and I love thrift store shopping, but my husband and I both get in trouble with that. We bring home too much stuff. We're in between pack rats and hoarders. It's kind of like the in between. And now that we're in this big old house, my husband and I have to keep reminding each other, we can't just fill this up, right? We have to be a little more mindful about, do I really need a 4th candle hurricane lamp thing? But yeah, it's dangerous for me because it's also a huge time suckage. It's a time suckage to be on it browsing, and then a time suckage to coordinate with somebody to go get a thing that's 2 towns over. So right now gas is cheap and the roads are fairly clear. So I'm trying to keep preparing myself the day when it takes 3 times longer to go get that thing than it does right now because traffic isn't so bad.
Right. And then you were also talking about like how you don't have time to deal with the stuff you're getting, but you have time to go ahead and shop for more.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Well, yeah, that's, and so lately I've been buying buttons, like, buttons that are on your coat or your t-shirts or stuff, because I do make craft projects with them.
Awesome.
So to acquire them is so much fun. It almost feels like a grab bag, like when you used to go to the carnival and you'd pay like $3 and you get a little bag and you don't know what's in it. But the exciting part is what's in the bag. And so one of my addictions actually is gambling. And it almost feels like it's a little bit of the same feeling of, I'm going to pay some money and I'm going to get a thing. And I wonder if it's going to be great. But like I said, I have to be mindful and tell myself, no, I don't need that. Walk away. But it's dangerous, especially when you don't have much to do but sit at home and shop.
Right.
And play with your friends.
And then Carly said, do you guys look together or both of you end up bringing stuff home?
Oh, Sean and I, my husband and I, we both love going thrift store shopping. And he doesn't browse the Facebook Marketplace right now because he's like big time into stay at home thing, and I'm not. So, but I'll find stuff and I'll send it to him on Facebook Messenger, and then he'll be willing to go get it. But he's not shopping. But to be honest, he is actually worse than me with the hoarding, because he sells stuff on eBay. So he buys stuff for cheap to put it on eBay.
That's actually not a bad way to go if you can make a profit off of it.
Yeah, if you can make a profit and if you have the space.
Right.
When the stuff encroaches on my living area, that's not a good scenario for anybody.
And then Brandy was saying, "There's always time to shop for more." So I had to razz her a little bit. I've known Brandy for years. And then she said, "How you describe yourself with buttons is how she is with yarn." Klutzana.
Oh my gosh.
Klutzana, I'm that way with penguins, and Carly, that's dangerous. So, you want to share the little tidbit about your husband that I know that they don't?
The part about being frugal?
I don't know about the part about him having the same diagnosis.
Oh, yeah. We were both diagnosed around the same time. And I think this was really at the height of our hoarding of things. And we both had the same doctor as well, who was the same one to diagnose us. And she actually told Sean it's fairly common for two bipolar people to become a couple without knowing the diagnosis or anything like that. We're like drawn to each other because we have the same kind of, that's a manic behavior of hoarding. It's a manic behavior to say, oh my gosh, that's half price. I need 4 of them because they're half price. And I did notice that when we both started taking medication, the compulsions to buy because it's on sale or to buy more than one were reduced. So that's definitely a symptom of the bipolar too.
Wow. And just thinking about it, I could see how obviously both of you knowing you have the same diagnosis, it gives you guys some common ground to be able to understand behaviors, to be able to watch out for things. But my thought was, do you guys sometimes help cancel each other out? Or do you guys act like 2 smaller tornadoes that join together become a larger tornado?
Oh, no, we're totally, because his way of coping with things is a lot different than my way. He buries a lot of emotions. So he feels them very intensely, but they're not very visible to other people. Mine are very visible and I don't care. And if somebody wants to give me grief about it, I don't use my depression and bipolar as an excuse, but I do let them know, look, I have a condition and I take medication for it. And it means that sometimes I'm just a very moody person. And I stopped making apologies for it because I felt like I was always apologizing. And it had to get ingrained in me over and over, stop apologizing. Because I'm not mean to people. I don't call them names. I don't, key their cars or whatever. I'm just emotional and animated sometimes. And I just would like for them to be able to understand that I do what I can to treat it. I go to therapy. I take medication. I talk about it. And
sometimes you probably just need your space.
And sometimes, oh my gosh, yeah. And sometimes Sean can tell. I mean, we've been married for 22 years, so of course he can tell. But sometimes I do have to articulate it to him, especially on a really bad day. I'll be on my way home and I'll call him and I'll say, hey, when I get home, I need you to pretend I'm not home for like 30 minutes. This is a pretty common phone call that I have. Please pretend, because he's home all day, every single day. His job is at home to sell stuff on eBay. So when I get home, depending on what's happening in the news, he can't wait for me to walk in the door and start telling me the governor did this and the president did that. And I just got back from a 10-hour workday. I need to decompress, give me some space. Right. So we handle it differently.
And going back a little bit here, when we're talking about the obsession of buying a bunch of stuff and doing things, Carly's like, that's me with the stickers and journals. I chimed in to say that's me with spiders. Yes.
That's you with spiders?
With spiders. I love spiders. They're my favorite animal. Carly and stationery. I'm the queen of buying the thing with a vision of doing the thing, but when you get the thing and the thing never gets done, and then your thing room is filled with the things for things that will never get done. And Carly's like, yes.
Eric, screen capture it for me.
And then about your emotions, Klutzana, I used to be shamed for showing my emotions. I'm still working on not apologizing for feeling my feelings, which is something that I've worked with her on that too. And as I said, I'm not ashamed. I just don't show them unless I know you well. Mm-hmm. It's just the way I am. And then Carly, that's me. Let me mind-numbingly watch TV and leave me alone.
Yep. Sometimes that's just, I don't know about other people, but I get mentally overstimulated sometimes and emotionally overstimulated. I can't, if anybody introduces any more stimuli into my bubble, I'm going to not be a very pleasant person. So sometimes it's just best to just say, I need some space. Let me zone out on the TV.
And it's good to know your limits. Some people just don't.
Yeah, and like we were talking, besides knowing your limits, is to also, we were talking earlier about to know yourself, to have some really good self-awareness of if you're somebody who struggles with depression or bipolar or anxiety, to know what are your triggers and to recognize the behavioral patterns. Because for me, with depression, a lot of times it just sneaks.
Uh-oh. Okay, so we're going to have to reconnect there. A little mute here while you're back.
Sorry, I got an incoming call, and even though I put on D&D, it just still came through.
So you're saying it'll just sneak, and that was it.
Sneaks up on you, and I'm like, depression is a sneaky bastard. I will be having a great day, and the next day I wake up, and dark thoughts start whispering at me like, nobody loves you, you're so worthless. Why are you even gonna plan on making this trip? Nobody cares if you go on the trip. And it slides in just so sneaky sometimes that's only a small whisper. And if you ignore it, if you're not really paying attention until like 2 days later, you're like, oh my God, depression's been messing with me for like 2 days straight. I didn't even notice it. So
yeah, it kind of lands on your brain like a single strand of spider web. So light, so delicate, but then another strand, and then another strand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. That's like during wintertime with my seasonal affective disorder, which I do plan on going into a lot of detail as it's happening. Same thing. Wake up in the morning and be like, don't worry about your pills. Nobody cares about you.
Yep.
And it's just such a quick thought. It doesn't even register that I thought it.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying it's so sneaky, because it doesn't register until maybe later you've got a whole, 14,000 strands of hair on the brain, and you're like, oh my gosh, this has been sneaking up on me. And so I've learned to notice some of my own behaviors that I didn't even notice were related until I started paying attention. And one of those things was like, I'd listen to a song on repeat play for like days. And so if I'm on like day 2 of listening to the same song on repeat play, I'm like, you know what? You got to pick another song. This is not a good something. I don't know what it is, but I just noticed that the funk comes, and I've noticed that the days leading up to it, I was listening to music on repeat play, or I'll tweet things. I'm on Twitter a lot. And I'll tweet things that are sort of whimsical or nonsensical, and to me they're amusing. But if I look at them later, I'm like, what were you? That doesn't make any sense, Jennifer. So I've learned to keep an eye on things, because if the earlier you can catch it, if you catch it when there's just like 2 hairs on the brain, then it's easier to take those off than when it's like covering your face.
And weaving its way into your heart, your soul. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Carly was saying about being bipolar means you're an extrovert sometimes, but you need the next day to recharge and overanalyze everything that happened the day before.
Oh, I'm a total overanalyzer.
Yep.
110%.
Yeah, I think that might be just part of depression as well, or anxiety. Because I overanalyze sometimes too, and I just have to tell myself, stop. Just stop. Like, I had to learn that my biggest cognitive distortions are I tend to catastrophize. I tend to maximize other people's stuff, minimalize my own, and crystal ball fallacy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I tend to look at the worst of things. I tend to make everybody else's things bigger than mine, make myself as small as possible, and I could see the future, which I can't.
Yeah, and I don't say it like crystal ball, but I say I make up stories. And me and a really good friend of mine, we talk about this a lot. We make up these stories, and it starts with your overthinking. And then you're projecting a scenario that hasn't even happened yet. And then the worst part for me is that my emotions happen based on the story I've made up in my mind. This is so stupid.
Fortune telling.
But the emotional part is tied to it. And that's just sabotage. That's pure self-sabotage.
It really is. Oh no, one of my kids is knocking on the door. My wife's supposed to be stopping that. I'm just going to mute it. Nobody can hear me yelling at her. But yeah, so so when you first were diagnosed, obviously you said that you didn't like the fact that there's the chance that you're gonna have to be medicated. You fought it,
Right.
What was going through your head? Because obviously, I remember when I was first diagnosed, it hit hard. For me, it felt like I got hit in the face with a brick.
It did. It was very, like I said, I went to the doctor and I was like, I have this going on in my life and I have that going on in my life. And then she's the one who sort of rounded them all up together in the same room and said, this is depression. This is what this is. And so at first I'm like, that sucks. I'm 20s, early 20s. This is sucky. And then I just had to be like, okay, well, let's get through it. I didn't realize at the time, this is going to be a lifelong thing. And it's kind of like, I liken it to like physical therapy. So I have arthritis in both of my knees. And so I've been sent to physical therapy a couple times for my arthritis, and it would get better. And then it would just go back to the way it was. Well, I wish somebody had told me at once upon a time, we're going to put you in intense physical therapy. And for it to be effective, you have to do this for the whole rest of your life, or the benefits, they're just going to go away. So for the whole rest of my life, I do have to treat my bipolar, my depression. I don't have to do it the exact same way. I've been changing it up for the last 25 years. But it is something I have to deal with for the rest of my life. And another thing that I had to, which really helped me, but I had to tell myself, you're not broken. You're not defective, because that's the word I would use to describe myself all the time. Because I have addiction, and because I have mental illness, and because of this and that, I'm defective. Like, they didn't mold me right at the human molding factory. So my mantra is, you are not broken. You're not defective. You are enough, and you're not alone. Because I felt so alone, because nobody talks about it, right? Like, just don't talk about depression. You're not supposed to be depressed.
That's the point of this podcast.
I know. Thank you for having this podcast.
No, thank you for being part of it.
It's really, really important that people know that they're not alone. It was a very lonely feeling. Like, when you asked me, how did that feel? It just made me, because I didn't know anybody else who was going through depression. I didn't know anybody else to go and say, hey, do you think I should do these pills or not? It's a very lonely feeling.
I went and sat in the car for a good half hour to an hour. I didn't go anywhere, didn't call my wife, didn't do anything, just dealt with it. Like I said, it isolates.
Yeah.
It shouldn't, but it does. Let's just face it, it does. It isolates you from your life that you thought you had.
Yep. And then when the moods of depression happen, the waves of depression, I retreat. And I have really good friends who notice they had no one to check on me. They'll be like, hey, Jen, you haven't been on Twitter for 3 days. What's going on?
Yeah, that's Klitzana with me and me with her. Notice you haven't been on for a while. You okay?
Yeah. Because besides the feeling of isolation of, oh man, I'm this person with this diagnosis, the illness also wants you to isolate, because it likes you. And by the way, what's the word? I treat depression like it's a person. I will talk to depression. I'll be like, you're a liar. Okay, get out, leave. I'm not dealing with you today. What do you call that? There's a word for it. When you assign human characteristics to like an ant.
Yeah,
what is that called?
Anthropomorphize or something like that.
That's the word. I do that with depression. I will talk to it.
Actually, what was funny is when I went to the anxiety treatment center, they do equine therapy, which is, horses. They have a horse and they have a mule. And they say that your emotional baggage is a lot like either a horse or a mule. It can be bigger than you, but ultimately you can control it unless it's being just obnoxious that day. Mm-hmm. And it was great because then you actually got a physical feel of what it's like to deal with what you have in your head and in your heart. It was awesome.
That's That's great. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, and it was mind-blowing being able to do it, because you'd set up an obstacle course and you would assign something to each thing. And I did my first one. It was just a straight line of everything with one thing shot off to the side. I went, this is a normal day. I have to wake up, point at one. I have to brush my teeth, get dressed, go to work, do this, do that, at the end of the day. But that one thing that's off to the side, that's that thing that pops up in the middle of the day that was unexpected. And I had to weave the horse through the entire thing, including going out and grabbing that one off.
Wow.
Brandy said that she wants to get into equine therapy. She has horses. You should. We were talking about the paranoia came in. Maya was saying about why she can't get high, and I'm E smokes weed. E has panic attacks. E smokes no weed. My smokes weed. Maya listens to all the conversations happening around her and wonders why they're all really talking, why they secretly hate Maya, and their secret we hate my language. My smokes no weed. And then CJ is like, I love when some friends you just know and know to check on you, but sometimes you just don't have the strength to respond. For everybody out there that does not understand, when you check on us, even if we don't respond, it means the world to us.
Yeah.
I'm confident I could say that on behalf of all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have broken down and cried when I've had someone check up on me, and I still couldn't bring myself to respond.
That's the kind of thing where I'm glad you got this podcast, Eric, because I identify with that so much.
I saw it on your face. Yes, I have video you don't get to see. But yeah, no, I was feeling, I got a little misty-eyed just talking about that, just thinking about when I've been checked up on, when I was at my worst. Klatsana, gotta love the friends who know how when you're feeling down. Oh, Brandy used to have horses. Okay, Brandy, you have a homework assignment. My equine therapy is awesome. CJ talk about absolutely does about how my statement to everybody out there that doesn't understand. Brandy, I harass my sister till she eventually responds. Maybe days later, but I keep checking on her. Good. Even if you think that you're being annoying, you're not. At least for me, you're not. I love it. I mean, if you call me 5 times a day, I love it. Because I know I'm down. How about yourself, Jen?
Oh, man, I can't tell you. I had these 2 friends. One of them passed away, but she always knew. And it meant so much to me when she would reach out. She would just know that I just needed a friend. And the best part about that scenario was that if I didn't reply, she didn't take it personally. She wasn't offended. And she understood. She understood just how depression can just make you not want to engage with the world at all. So if you can be the person that reaches out to someone that has depression and not get offended when they don't reply or not get your own feelings hurt, it really does. It makes a huge difference in that person's life. You become their rock.
You do. Hey, Dad, I hope you're listening. During my divorce, when you would call every day, and you too, Jen, my sister Jen, it meant the world to me. Even though I never called you guys back, you guys helped me make it through each day, just hearing your voices. And then is like, and dig down if someone says they're okay. Yeah, you're right. We don't want to burden anyone with our problems. They call Brandy a champion. And then Klatsana, I always feel I'm annoying, but I do it anyway. I need to know the people I love are okay. And honestly, when you're at the bottom, you don't want to burden anyone with your problems because you're at the bottom. You minimize your own problems.
Yep, exactly.
They have worse problems than what you're dealing with. You just can't get out of bed. Well, no. Your problem is just as real as theirs. Your feelings are just as valid. And that's something it took me going through group therapy a couple of times to really grasp. When I would share, I would see other people sharing, and I felt with every single one of them, wow, they have real problems. I'm a fraud. Then I went to share, and I saw the same look on everybody's faces. Wow, he's got real problems. I'm a fraud. Deep down, we're all feeling the same. When we're down, we all feel the same, at least to some extent. Klatsana, been there. We need to not invalidate ourselves.
Yeah. And that's the negative self-talk that we have to arrest it, when we see it. I need to improve on that. I always need to improve on that because it also comes in stages, but minimizing our own stuff is very common, I think, with people with depression.
Absolutely. And instead of saying that you need to do it, I'm going to challenge you with something. My therapist challenged me with this, and I love it. I invite you to keep working on it.
Oh, that's cute.
Need makes you knee-jerk no. An invitation, though, makes you kind of want to accept it.
That definitely sounds like it came from a therapy office.
Right? But it worked for me. Like, I need to mow the yard versus I invite myself to mow the yard. I actually feel like I actually want to mow the yard when I'm invited to mow the yard.
Oh, that's cute. I love that. I'll work on that. I'll give that a try. I'll use some different phraseology. Phraseology makes a huge difference, at least for me, it does.
The words you choose speak a lot about what you're doing and who you are.
Yep.
CJ, I do it all the time. I will offer advice to everyone else and listen, but I don't want to bring up myself. Well, yeah. And then Klatsana, I accept your invitation.
That's cute.
Yeah, so we still got about 3 minutes to go here. Well, 2.5 because I have the outro. Anything else that you want to add? Any other questions people want to ask? I know with depression, pretty much this chat room, for the people that I do know, yeah, we all know depression. We don't all know bipolar, too. Brandy, I should try doing that. I need to clean the house. I just haven't been motivated lately. Maybe I should start inviting myself. Invite yourself to do a little bit at a time. Invite yourself to do a load of dishes. CJ just called you a warrior, Jen.
Oh, thanks, CJ. Oh, that means a lot.
Yeah, Jen, I could tell you, has been, this last few, 10 minutes or so, it has been an emotional roller coaster. I could see it. But you look like you're feeling pretty good coming out of this.
Yeah, it really, you were right, just connecting with people feels good.
I wish I could like all the comments. Jen, thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, thanks, you guys.
Yeah, see, this is like you're saying, you're not alone. And you can see it here. Jen, thank you for speaking today from Klatsana. We have the best listeners. It feels so good to let go and talk about it. Yes. There may or may not be former guests in the chat. I'll just say that. Yes, thank you, Jen, for sharing your story, and E for reaching out to remind me about the podcast. Absolutely. I'm glad I remembered. I'm glad that you were actually busy so I could see that you were online and go, oh, hey, by the way. By the way, for everybody, if you want to know what's coming up, facebook.com/mentallivecast. Like the page, and you'll get notifications. I don't post all the time, but I let you know when a show's coming up and kind of let you know a little bit about if it's going to be a good one or not. They're all good, honestly. Let's just face it. They're good. CJ, yeah, I'm glad I didn't totally flake. Like KZ? Oh, wait.
Gotta rib KZ a little bit.
Gotta razz him a little bit.
He's being essential.
He is, though. He really is. All right, got some thumbs up from and at this point, yeah. Thank you very much again, Jen. Thank you for sharing. Glad you really opened up. I'm so thankful for that.
I really appreciate everybody showing up, and I wish I could give you all a little air hug, socially distanced air hugs to everybody.
And you just did. All right, see you guys next week.